Join us as career changers, company leaders, industry experts, and others who have been in your shoes share their stories, insights, and lessons learned to help you find enjoyment through employment in the tech world. I'm Nemo Ashong, and this is the Empjoyment Podcast. Hey, Empjoyees, and welcome to episode 6 of the Empjoyment Podcast. Today we have Deniz Cebenoyan on our show, and Deniz is a senior project manager at Revenate. And the thing that makes me excited for you all to experience when it comes to Deniz's story is that she really has found a way to embrace her non-technical background, and not just embrace. I think it's not strong enough of a word. It doesn't go far enough, because she's able to actually use that as a place of strength, as a place that allows her to provide unique value and really do her job at an exceptional rate and with exceptional quality. So throughout this conversation, Deniz's background is just so varied. It starts out in research and it goes through a number of different twists and turns that really allow her to bring the value that she brings on a daily basis. And as you're listening to this, I encourage you to find and think for yourself about the unique superpower and a unique strengths that you can bring to the table, given the fact that you don't have the same type of background as perhaps other counterparts in your office. It's funny, while I'm recording this, I'm thinking about Superman, and I'm sure there are people out there who are bigger comic fans than I am, so I apologize if I'm getting this not 100% right. But it is my understanding that Superman on his own planet isn't all that super. You know, amongst all the other people on the planet, he's quite a regular person. But when he comes over to Earth, that gives him the ability to shine and stand out. And I'm sure that there are other reasons why that's the case. I just don't have my comic book folklore mythology. I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. But generally speaking, I think there's great power in just knowing that, like, the things that you might take for granted, or the viewpoints that you might have, or the way that you see the world might be the very thing that makes you special and adds the most value to your employers and onto your team when you come out to a job in the tech world. We talk about diversity here, and I think it goes far beyond just race, ethnicity, gender, age, socioeconomic status, and so on. I think one of the primary reasons why diversity is so important in the workplace is for that diversity of thought, for the different viewpoints in there, and for the opportunity for people to become super people just by changing their environment. So I invite you to this episode here with Deniz Cebenoyan. And if you really enjoy this, I just ask that you go on to iTunes. You can just go to empjoyment.com/iTunes and leave an honest review of the podcast and help other people find this and make this into the #1 podcast to help you get enjoyment through employment. All right. Without further ado, here's Deniz. Enjoy. Why, hello there, and welcome to the Empjoyment Podcast, where we're focused on helping people just like you find enjoyment through employment. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Deniz Cebenoyan. Deniz, I'm so excited to explore how you have found enjoyment today during this discussion here. But before we do, I think it'd be really great for employees to get to know you a little bit better. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your life, love, work, and passion?
Hi, Nemo. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. I have heard wonderful things about you, and I think what you're doing here is really fantastic because, for me too, I was somebody who wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in my life. And to be honest, still, I'm not entirely sure, but I've taken a lot of different paths and I'm in a good place now. And I think that many people with many diverse backgrounds can achieve what me and my peers in similar situations have been able to find just through kind of keeping their eyes open, having at least a smidge of confidence and I don't know, believing in themselves, I guess, to sound a little cliche. But you had asked, what do I love to do and what am I all about? That has nothing to do with this stuff. So a little bit about me. I am I've been living in San Francisco now for 6 years, I believe. I'm originally from the East Coast, and I've lived in a million different places in the East Coast. But all kind of localized around there. New York mostly, Maryland a bit, and Pennsylvania a bit as well. And excuse me. So in my free time, when I'm not working at odd hours, I very much enjoy creative writing and music. I like playing it. I play the piano and going to shows and things like that, although I don't do that nearly as much. And honestly, spending a lot of alone time, as hermit-like as that sounds, my job, as you'll find out in the course of this chat, it involves a lot of talking. So sometimes I just like to read a book for 4 hours. and like I told you earlier, I don't even know where my phone is.
No, that's awesome, Denise. And thank you so much for just like sharing all that there, because, so I grew up in South Jersey myself. So I'm all about, I'm quite familiar with East Coast here.
Yeah.
But I think there's something that is really, I'm the type of person that actually gets charged by being around other people. So I'm like, if I spend all day alone, I just have to go outside to the park and just see others.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of cool because through my experiences with just like working with culture and working with different people, I learned that there are there are other ways to get energy. So it's cool that even though you are someone who like might want to like recharge by spending some time alone and, having a book there or getting rid of the cell phone or whatever it is, you're still able to find enjoyment through what you're doing that involves a lot of talking or whatever it is. So totally. That's super exciting. And I feel we're already off to just like a really fun start to this year. Employees, I got a chance to talk to Denise beforehand. You're in for quite a treat here. And I think what's pretty cool is how she goes about and looks at the world there. So, what I like to do is start off this whole thing, just kind of framing things up and priming us for an amazing conversation. And to do that here, I'd love to see, is there like some kind of quote or mantra that you use that you keep coming back to that helps guide what you do throughout your life?
That's a really good question. I don't really have a quote that you would see on maybe a traditional, successories style, flying eagle photo framed on your wall. But I do kind of like to remind myself that everything is temporary, and that sort of has a slightly fatalistic sound to it at first, because life in the end is also temporary. I don't really think of it that deeply. It's more just like any hardship you might be going through, and sadly also the good times are also temporary, but I try to think of it more positively, and when I'm frustrated, I have maybe a argument with somebody, or I did something wrong, something I worked on, and it's mostly in the professional setting where something I did maybe had a lot of bugs or complaints or something, or I should have thought of something and I didn't. That feeling is temporary. That project is temporary. Hell, this job is temporary. I mean, everything like this too shall pass in that sort of way. I've actually had sort of a history of just being kind of an anxious person who worries way too much about things. And then when I was I think I was 24 or something, I actually got a tattoo on my arm, which is something someone like me would never, ever do. I mean, it's a small one, but it's on my arm, so it's not really hidden. Like, as soon as I wear a short sleeve shirt, you can see it. But part of that was also tied to this idea that don't worry so much. And it's funny to tie it to a phrase that's everything is temporary when I'm talking about permanent ink. But I swear this all makes sense in my head. It was basically a way to alleviate that anxiety of worrying about any one particular thing, that hey, I got this thing and I didn't, remember, you were brave enough to get permanent ink on your body, and don't freak out so much about tiny little things. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. And I think I've been thinking about it so much that it makes total sense to me, but it was just sort of like a screw you to my anxiety and being like, I'm going to get that tattoo and you're not going to worry about whether I'll like it in 10 years, whether I'll like it when I'm old and wrinkly and saggy and it looks different. And, so I try to have sort of anxiety alleviating mantras because I've been known to be a nervous person sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's actually really interesting. As you're saying it, thank you for bringing that out there. Yeah, I'm putting all that out there because as you're saying, there's so much that's resonating with me. I'm also one that my wife describes it as I'm driven by joy and fear. And like those are the two things. I'm like, I don't get angry, I don't get sad, like I get afraid. And I think like as I think about, switching careers or making a change that is really like popular in idea, but unpopular in reality, where, someone following their passion, or someone saying like, hey, look, I'm leaving what on paper looks like it's the right thing for something that like right now I know feels like is exactly where I want to be. Like that kind of anxiety is like, it follows and it's very real. And for us to like be able to put it out there right off the very beginning, Denise, like it just makes me know that like we're going to have like a very real conversation here. No fluff.
Like therapy. I love this. Great.
It's going to come out here and we're going to talk about the real stuff. And if it's all right with you, Denise, like since you've gone there, if the opportunity opens up, I might ask you to explore that a little bit more with all of
Oh yeah. Totally. I seriously feel like I should be laying on a couch. Like ask me about my mother and
you know what, that might come up. It hasn't come up yet.
Bring it. I'm ready.
In our conversations, but let's see how it goes. Talking about mothers, we're going to take things all the way back to the beginning of your journey. So what I'd like to know is like how you got. So firstly, if you can tell us like what you do now, and how you got involved in tech and kind of like where you were beforehand and the steps that led you up there. It'd be really great to just be basically walk through that process that you had that got you into tech, and then we'll continue on from there to find out more about your journey.
Absolutely. So right now I am a product manager for a small tech company of about 150 people or so, maybe. And I've been in this position for about 2 years. And prior to that, I was at the same company for about 3 years doing a data management role. So that was actually the role I got hired into as my first tech job ever, like totally tech job ever, and my first outside of the world of academia. So before I dive into that, I should tell you a little bit about my educational background. I have I'm laughing because I can see your face smiling. So I'm like, oh my gosh, do I have to give him a good story about like my university days?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I got nothing. I'm just going to tell you about my degree. But no, okay. So I went to Carnegie Mellon University, which is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is practically Ohio. Little known fact, Pittsburgh is like barely in Pennsylvania. It's so far west. It's basically Midwest, to give you a cultural feel, immerse yourself in that anecdote. So I graduated with a major in psychology, and I actually had an additional major in Spanish, which was sort of accidental because I love the Spanish language so much. It's just simply that was purely a pleasure. I mean, they both were a pleasure, but I started off in the math program, which was predominantly, I was good at math in high school, but coming from high school and then you go into like the big leagues when you're at a university, and my parents are immigrants from Turkey, and they, like many people who came to this country and for education, they don't really want to see their kid being like, I want to be a social scientist. They'd much rather me get a background in like a hard science and something that involves engineering or math or, science, and psychology is not a science according to the older generations, which is in part true. It's not the same type of science, but there are plenty of scientific elements, behavioral analysis, statistics, things like that, research methodologies and whatnot that I do think involve an analytical mind, even if they aren't entirely writing code or things like that. But Anyway, so I started off in the math program, and within a year, I realized that I'm just not nearly as good as all the other kids, and maybe not all the other kids, but you have this reality check when you go off into a pool, as I'm sure you did too, having gone to a very good school like Cornell. You're surrounded by people who are super bright, and it's no longer you in your high school. And you're like, okay, I was good for my high school, but like now I should probably do something that comes a little bit more naturally, even if I can sort of fake it. I don't want to be faking it my whole life in a math program. And so I went in and I found psychology was something that I gravitated towards so much because I just enjoyed helping people, which sounds silly because I feel like everyone enjoys helping people, but I really enjoy it. It's a strange thing that I feel like I even do in my job right now. I take such immense pleasure in just like making people laugh or making their day a little bit easier. I mean, for a while, I thought about even going into like nursing or something. That's sort of, I mean, there's so much more to being a nurse than just making people comfortable. But unfortunately, I'm also extremely squeamish, so that would have been a terrible career choice. But that concept, it was either like be a nurse, be a clown, or be a psychiatrist. So I went with psychiatrist. And my high school didn't actually have, I know some high schools have psychology courses. We didn't. So this was kind of a shot in the dark for me to just say, I know that I'm interested in this and I want to pursue it. And so I did. And I switched into the psych program. I got a Bachelor of Science because I had taken a crap load of science courses for my math major that never happened. And then I just was very interested in studying abroad in either South America or Spain. I ended up going to Spain and actually studied a lot of the things that interested me. I didn't take a single psych course. I worked on my thesis, but I didn't take a single psych course. I just took, art history, literature, all these wonderful subjects that I always wanted to take and got sort of Spanish credits for them. So I ended up getting a Spanish major in addition. But that's something that's more personal enrichment, that even though that's a very handy language to be at least conversational in, it's not something that really has shaped my professional development. So anyway, not to go on this forever, I'm sure you have a million questions, but that was my educational background. I went right into research. I had been working my summers at Columbia University. My parents live in New York, so I would be at home in the summers and I would work in labs. And then I actually ended up working full time in multiple labs there for many, many years in research labs, basically trying to defer whether or not I would go to grad school because I wasn't ready to commit to doing a PhD, which you need to do if you want to go into psychiatry or if you want to go into research. I wasn't even sure. After being in a lab for so long, I thought, hey, this is kind of interesting too, to be on the side that doesn't have to deal with carrying the emotional baggage of, 10 suicidal patients a day. So perhaps this might be an interesting alternative while still being, interested in how brain functions and how people behave and things like that. And so I basically was in purgatory for about 5 or 6 years, 7 years, I don't know, many, many years, in which the irony of it all, I could have actually gotten a PhD. So had I known, I would have wasted 7 years in a lab while deciding whether or not to spend 7 years getting a PhD. I probably should have done that from the start. But again, you never know these things. It's okay to do that. Don't look at it like it was a waste of time. It wasn't. There were plenty of skills that I picked up there that I ended up using later. And to be totally honest, the way I got into tech, I was in a long distance relationship. When I was in New York, I had a boyfriend in California, in Silicon Valley, and he was working at Google. And we were doing the long distance thing. And I was like, this is silly. I have been in a lab biding my time for 7 years. I'm clearly not going for my PhD. Like, I need to get out of here and potentially leave New York because this is crazy. So I thought, you know what? He's got a great thing going there. I need a change. Why don't I up and move? And I took about 6 months off in which I followed, again, to make things even more insane, I did something I always wanted to do and never thought I'd have the opportunity to do, but I got radio certified. I grew up being obsessed with radio. And again, like I said before, I love music and analyzing music and even writing some crappy music of my own. But I got sort of basic sound engineering certified at Stanford, and passed all the FCC requirement courses and whatnot, and wrote my own radio show and did a radio show for about 6 months. While I took some time off, basically, for doing the thing I love, and I was just like, I need a break. I don't want to jump right into finding a new job. I don't even know what to do. All I know is tech is the industry out here. I guess I'll look at some job sites and read through the descriptions and see what catches my eye. And in the meantime, I'm going to be doing my radio thing. So I did the radio thing without even worrying about finding a job for about like 5 months. And then towards the end, of course, like savings was running out. But so I was like, okay, this is silly. I need to find a job. And a recruiter actually found my resume. I applied to a bunch of jobs, the typical methods going on job sites and whatnot. But a recruiter happened to find my resume that a friend of mine who works at Apple helped me work on my resume. So I do recommend people find a techie buddy to help highlight some of the skills in your existing resume and maybe say, okay, these other things aren't as necessary. That was very helpful for me. So I posted it on some job site, and a recruiter found it. And this was one of the first. I had interviewed casually with a couple of companies, and then this was, I think, maybe the third one that I was interviewing with. But the first one that I quickly got an offer from, even after going through like 8 different interviews, and it was a role in data management. I didn't even know what data management was. Like, I had no idea. I didn't know what a job was like outside of academia. Like, that's how clueless I was. The only thing I had going for me was I had, like I said before, like somewhat of a pseudo-analytical background with some of those sciencey, mathy courses. I had taken some computer science classes while working at Columbia in the lab, because it was super nice of them as part of the benefits. I mean, they pay you garbage, but they at least give you these, like, you can take a couple of free classes. So I was like, oh, this is cool. So I took these classes and was like, oh crap, this is hard to do while you work full time. but it was great. It was a great opportunity. So, and I know not everyone listening will have an opportunity like that, but there are actually amazing online programs like Khan Academy. Later I used it's totally free, to bulk up on like SQL skills, stuff like that. Coursera is another one that I know has tons of classes, a lot of which are free. There are probably tons that I'm not. Udemy, I think, is another one. I'm sure there are a million other ones that you can dig through. YouTube, go on YouTube, look up things that say, if you want a data analysis job, how do you do a pivot table in Excel? I don't know. I would have to look into, oh yeah, that's how you do it. Okay, great. We live in this amazing time where information is so prolific and everywhere that it's easier than ever to just bulk up enough about something to be able to kind of talk the talk. And I don't mean to say like BS your way. No, you should basically be able to, and we can go into this a little bit further. I feel like I'm answering 25 questions in this monologue. But I think those courses helped me understand, they didn't make me a good programmer. I'm still a garbage programmer. If anyone looked at any of my assignments now, I would not show them to any of our customers here, but they did give me a good way of understanding just how programmers think and how they approach a problem, and what is an algorithm. That's a word that people have been using so much now, and I feel like half the time people don't even know what it means. They just think it sounds fancy. Honestly, it is a fancy way of saying like a series of steps to do something. That's pretty much all it is. But it's an essential part of writing out how to get from point A to point B, or how to manipulate data, or how to do whatever the task is that you're trying to do, how to solve that problem. And thinking in those terms, as opposed to in the way I'm answering this question, for example, scatterbrained and all over the place, is an excellent way to communicate with an engineering team or people like that who might have a more sort of, is it left-brained or which side of the brain? I don't even think that's true, that stuff, but analytical brained people think. So I definitely played that up a bit, saying like, oh, and I had, in my previous job, we did a lot of experimentation on human people. And we human participants, they were running around a maze like lab rats. No, I showed them an experiment which involved stimuli on a computer, and I would have to kind of iterate with them. That's another buzzword that people love to say, which basically just means look at what someone's doing, notice something that's problematic, change it, and then show it to another person. That, my friends, is iteration. Like, be sure to use that word on your resume. So I did a lot of that with one of the engineers in developing these experiments. So I played that up a bit too, just saying, I've experienced working with engineers and going back to them and iterating on this until we got a finished product. And so, yeah, but at the end of the day, as you can tell from this diatribe, I really don't have a tech background, and I just had a knack for doing different things and wanting to learn different things and putting in the hard work. I think that's really important. Just going on the click hole of one Wikipedia article to another, of trying to understand, basic concepts of statistics, or in some people's case, if they want to do some sort of data sciencey thing, or in my case, what certain terminology is in the tech sector. What does it mean to have a microservice? Things I didn't know what those things. I didn't know how to write a single line of SQL, and that was okay. And you kind of have to get a little lucky and have a boss that's willing to take a bit of a chance on you. I think I got a bit lucky in that my boss also had an unconventional background, coincidentally from research. So that definitely helped me out. So sorry, that was like a 45-minute answer. And we're done. Thanks, guys.
So, Joyce, I have to just come out here and say it. So in order for you to get like the best listening experience possible, I typically mute my mic. And Denise and I are here doing video. So I'm over here just cracking up the entire time.
I see you laughing, and I'm like, they're not hearing they're not hearing
providing. Trust me, if I did it, it would have just broken up the flow there. So, but I really did enjoy that flow, and like one of my big things is be more you, Denise. So like, please don't apologize for that. I think that like it was really, really great just kind of hearing this here, like hearing just. You're first generation out of Turkey. I'm first generation out of Ghana. And just the idea of like, okay, wait, generally speaking, there's a certain path we're supposed to go down,
Totally.
I started out as a math major myself and then switched over to economics. And
oh, no way.
Yeah. And I found for me, the balance between psychology and economics ended up being behavioral economics.
Huge. Yeah. It's social science, behavioral science. Yeah.
That's really that's why I spend my time in culture and these kinds of things. And so what I heard from you was that like, you bounced around to a whole lot of different things. You tried a lot of different things, but what you ended up doing was bringing all these different experiences together, and it put you in a position where you actually spoke the language of a tech company. And I also heard that like when you didn't speak the language, you did some extra work to figure out how to get there. And I think that extra work really seemed to come through from the everyone has the opportunity from where you were at to take those additional courses, but you stepped in and you did it. Everyone has access to YouTube or going to Udemy and such, but you ended up taking that time to do that. So kudos to you, if you don't mind me just saying on a very serious note here. Thank you for being someone that is really invest in your education and into growing yourself, because quite frankly, that not only got you to where you are, but now you're in a position where you're able to help other people continue to step forward. So kudos to you and thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. That's very nice of you to say that. One other thing I just wanted to mention is I mentioned briefly that I had a friend from Apple who reviewed my resume. One other amazing piece of advice he told me when I was looking at different jobs, just going on different sites. Again, I had very little to do or knowledge of the tech world aside from, major Google, Apple, these sorts of companies that everyone's heard of. And like I mentioned before, like I don't even know where my phone is. Like I'm clearly not. I have an iPhone 5, a refurbished iPhone 5 with like 14 cracks in it. And I clearly am not it's actually amazing that I ended up where I am also because I like just learned how to Snapchat and Instagram for research purposes for my job. Again, it's like I don't even want to be on Instagram, but I figure I should learn what it is. Anyway, so I clearly am not really the first person to go out and get like the smartwatch or anything like that. And my friend, and so I don't know a lot of these small companies that maybe someone else might know of. And so I told my friend that, and I said, hey, because I don't know these companies, I'm trying to read up a little bit in like TechCrunch in case somebody just got funding recently. That means they're going to be hiring. So, I'm looking at those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty much looking at these companies that I've heard of, and they give great perks. Everyone knows that Apple, Google, they all have like amazing perks. And he told me, sure, don't not apply to those jobs, but don't limit yourself. And just because you haven't heard of a company doesn't mean it's not going to be an incredible opportunity. And it kind of blew my mind because I was thinking, well, there are so many companies in Silicon Valley that pop up like daily. And at the same time, there are so many that die daily. So isn't that hugely risky for me to just go into a company, maybe last a few years, maybe a few months? I don't know. Are you serious? I asked him this and he was like, oh, first of all, everyone's used to it out here that companies go under. You do the best you can in the time you have with any given company. I guess I've been lucky that we've somehow survived for the 5 years that I've been here. But with the main point that he drove into me that I think is super helpful is that even if you get a job, especially for someone who's kind of clueless about what sorts of jobs are in the tech world that might mesh with their skill set, their personality, even if the job you are applying for or getting interviewed for sounds kind of like a weird fit or maybe something you never imagined yourself doing, if it's something you can imagine yourself learning from, if the company seems like it's in decent financial standing, like do some basic sanity checks. And if your boss to be appears to be a person you could work with and things like that, like if you get a generally good feeling from this, take it. Because the most amazing and important and helpful thing that you can't really get from a Coursera class or a Khan Academy or whatever it is, or even a class in a computer science major, is the experience of working with all sorts of people and seeing how people communicate. What are those different learning types? What are the different roles even? I mean, I got hired as a data manager. I did that for 3 years. And after a while, I kind of felt like I wasn't learning as much as I wanted to. And before I could have jumped ship and gone to a different company, but I basically asked around in the company and said, and I had seen people in the product team and I had started kind of moonlighting and helping the product team out on some projects, knowing that like, oh, they seem to be doing interesting stuff. And look at this product manager to my left. What does he have that I don't? What is his background? And what are the skills that make him effective? Or the one to my right, and what does she do to communicate well? What does she do that maybe is not good? What are some things that as an outsider I can see these two people around me doing that I should do and should not do? Like that social learning experience that you have at a company, not to mention talking the talk, walking the walk, all that stuff that you pick up via osmosis and furious Wikipedia, Google searches. That's all stuff that is so invaluable. Like it's so helpful. I didn't even know what product management was. I still have a hard time describing what it is. But all I knew is after 3 years of being at this company, it seemed like something I could do. And every time I went to, Glassdoor, Indeed, any of these job sites, there were a gazillion job openings for product manager, whereas there were not many for data manager. And it was, so it was like, okay, if I can transition into this role and if it seems like a good fit, I feel like I'll be in a better position in the future for employment. And it's just a different skill set. Like always be learning. Maybe that's another thing that I should say instead of everything is temporary. That sounds a lot more positive.
What you learn is that learning gap is temporary. So you always keep learning.
Yes.
Right? There it is.
Well, that's well said. Well said. Thank you, Nemo. Yes.
It all fits.
Yeah, it totally does. Yeah.
So can I ask you then, Denise? So let's see here. Really, realistically, 2 questions. Firstly, we're coming up on our time for the session. I have full flexibility. Okay. I do want to be mindful of your schedule. Would you be able to continue onward or? Yeah,
I have a bit of a stop at in about 15, 20 minutes, but I'm good otherwise. Yeah.
Perfect. That sounds good. So then with that, then what I'm going to do then is going to drill down into some questions that I think may be helpful for people just to get your thoughts on. And I think we have more than enough time, but I might just drive us a little bit more.
Sure.
So we can touch on a couple different things. So the first thing here is like, so you've just been open here. And I think I would really love to talk through and start seeing like, what does it actually mean to be a product manager? I know that you're saying that like, you know, you're like still figuring it out, but you have a better sense than a lot of employees out there, even myself out there. So what I'd like to do is explore some like specific projects that, and you don't have to give too much in terms of the specifics, but I'd love to like maybe walk through through that experience with you. And so what would be really great is to take a look at a project that you worked on where you know, quite frankly, you failed or you ran into a huge struggle or challenge and it just didn't work out. I would love if you can take us to that moment. Let us know what was going on with that project, what you were trying to accomplish, and what I'd like to know is what you're trying to accomplish, the steps that you took to overcome it, and what you might have done differently if you were going to approach it again.
Yeah, excellent question. So a project where I failed, or I consider like a black stain on my on my history is I can think of one clearly because I remember how upset it made me. There was a request. So the product I used to be primarily in charge of had a bunch of major enterprise clients paying for it. And that puts you in a bit of a unique position because you are often allowed not as much creativity. You sometimes have to bend to their wishes because they're paying you so much. And that's tends to be something that people in my position, product managers or people who have the ability to shape a product direction tend to get a little nervous about or not want to do because they can't really do what they want. And they're beholden to these what we call stakeholders, these people who have a vested interest in how you end up developing the product. So there was a VP. We have these planning meetings every month, and they come up and they say, you know, what are some things they're hearing from the field, and people come to us and they tell us, okay, this is getting more high priority. We need to do this. And so one such thing came up where it was like basically like a do or die. We have to do this. The client is so upset that we haven't done this in so long. Major client paying us tons of money. How could we have even not done this yet is basically what a VP told me in a nice way. We actually had a very nice relationship, but you know, said this in sort of a way that I have essentially zero stature as far as the latter, you know. I mean, it's funny actually. Being a product manager is a weird position because you determine the way a product goes, which means you have all the power at the end of the day. But you are not an exec, you are not a VP, you are not a whatever. You are basically telling people to build something, and hopefully you're telling them to build. You've done your homework such that what they're building is going to be helpful for your customers. And so in this meeting, the mistake I made was taking everything he was saying at face value. This guy's a VP, and I just got nervous and upset that I hadn't worked with such urgency in the past on this project. And I said, okay, here's what we can do immediately. And I laid out some ideas I had, and he said, okay, that's like the beginning, but sure, that's sort of the least we can do. And yes, this one, and I mentioned a few times, like, are you sure this is helpful to them? Like, this doesn't make sense to me, this thing that you're telling me about. And I even asked like my boss and a couple other people, and they were kind of like, I guess. And yes, this is important. This will help. This will absolutely help. This is great. So we built it. I mean, we spent like 2 months building this thing and no one used it. And I you know, and then I'm embarrassed because my team just spent 2 months building this thing. And the best thing you can do for an engineering team is tell them, oh my God, people are raving about this thing you guys built. You made this. Look how many people are using it. The second one, annoyingly enough, the second one tiny thing breaks, everyone screams about it. So you know they're using it, though. That's actually a good indication. Things broke on this. No one reported it and no one was using it. I went in, I found out a way to track the usage of like how many people had modified these. It was like new filtering. Oh my God, it was like a handful, half of which were us testing. I mean, it was so embarrassing and just awful. And the lesson I learned, and I mentioned this actually at the next meeting. Hey guys, I saw that there's very low usage. Is it just that we're not telling people about it? Is there like a marketing issue? And little by little, people would say like, they're not just finding it that useful. It's just turns out it wasn't that useful. And I was livid, but I was mostly mad at myself for taking what this guy said at face value and believing him wholeheartedly without ever asking the customer, which is like a PM 101 mistake. You should never try, even if someone's the CEO telling you this, like unless they're saying you're going to be fired tomorrow or something like that, do your own research and say, please schedule a call with this person. I want them to take me through how this is going to help them. What is their end goal they're trying to achieve? Is there a way we can achieve it differently? Instead of spending those 2 months on that, can we spend it on something that maybe takes 3 months, but at least we're 2 months into it and it's way more valuable? Don't necessarily think of this as low-hanging fruit just because it's the smallest project in, this larger group of things that they've been asking for. It has to be valuable. I don't care if it's quick. In this case, it wasn't even quick. It took months. It was a waste of effort. So now I try to write out every single, like give me specific examples how they're using this, or get me on a call with them, ideally both. And before we do anything like that, and doing these sorts of what we call retrospectives at the end of releasing certain products, where we look at usage and we determine where are people getting tripped up. Are they using the product? Right now, I just recently did one where they're using, one element of a product, they're using a ton of one part of it. Great. They're not using some of the other parts. Get rid of it. That stuff is dead weight. It's stuff that if it breaks, we have to fix it. It might affect other things. To keep this stuff simple, like do that extra step of both before you build it, figure out if it's actually valuable by talking to the person who's going to use it, which I didn't do in this case and led to this failure. And then afterwards, do the homework of, okay, review the usage and see if there are parts you could change. Is it that they're not using it because it's hard to find? Is it just not that useful? Qualitative, have some that's quantitative, have some qualitative conversations with people. And there are various ways to do that. But anyway, that was a learning experience.
Talk about iteration, right? So there's a bunch of different things in here. I love this 101 idea. So just so you know, Denise, I might pull that out from something else there, like product management 101. Like I really like that concept. That really struck out to me. It's like, all right, what are the basics? What are things there? And some things that I heard from you was like before building it, do the research, talk to the people who are going to use it, see if this is actually a problem before you actually invest a lot afterward. And there's this other part of it here, which just seems like, I really just want to call it out, where it's like, you didn't shy away from it. You weren't like, oh, these numbers are bad, I'm not going to bring it up to anyone. But like
sweep them under.
No, seriously, no, but honestly, like I think that like really just looking at this experience here, like you brought it up to the attention. You're like, I'm livid. I'm mad that like on multiple ends, but I could have done something different, and I will do something different about it going
right.
And I think, employees, I'm going to encourage you right now, wherever you are, maybe just pause this episode real quick and think to your own experience, right? You may not be doing quote unquote product management in the same sort of way, in terms of having the title or working in tech on a daily basis, but you probably end up doing something where you have to make recommendations, or your organization is going to go in a different direction, or you're going to take on a project or something like that. And you are also involved in this process of figuring out what should be done and what getting people on board to execute that, being able to translate what people are saying that is the issue to what you can actually accomplish, and then going back and looking at your results and saying, is this actually hitting what we need to or not? And do we move forward or do we drop it? And Denise, I hope you don't mind, but like I do want to make that quick parallel there, just to kind of help practice this habit of being able to translate your past skills into things that are happening within the tech world. Because there was something that you brought up, Denise, about like how you just took your resume. It's the same thing you did, but you had your friend that went out there and said, like, here's how you might want to say it, so that someone else would reading it would understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you for walking us through that. That sounds painful, but I'm really happy that you were able to come out of there. If you along those lines here, so let's flip it around here. Tell me, like, this year, I'm getting a picture of like what a product manager does too. And what I'm feeling here is that like you are setting the direction of at least a portion of the technology and how it's going to be interacted with from a consumer perspective, what should be done, how it should be done, and so on. It also seems that you work a lot with, you had mentioned the word stakeholders, so like engineers and the engineering team in terms of deciding how that goes, but also executives and other people who are in various areas. Can you talk a little bit to that there in terms of like the various people that you work with and how, like, you know, how your work gets done?
Yeah, pretty much, excuse me, pretty much everyone at the company I work with, I think. So that's another one of those. I feel like a lot of people just sit in front of a computer all day and then they're kind of like, I gotta be social. Like you were saying, you know, if you sit still for too long, you need to go out to the park or whatnot. Whereas I seriously feel like I'm talking to everyone all day. It's mostly the engineering team. I work right now on 2 main products. So we have 3 products at my company and I work on 2 of them. I share one of them with 2 other product managers, and then one of them I kind of own on my own. And then, and so it's basically both of those engineering teams that I'll be barraged with instant messages all day. I'll have to have separate meetings with them to kind of go over, you know, here's a new idea for a feature and here's why we're doing it. Kind of sit down and explain it to them in plain English and just say, you know, this is the problem customers are experiencing. And then it's often handy, I find, to just, instead of having a total brainstorming session, to kind of come with an idea of here's how I think we should approach it. Any thoughts, any questions? As far as technology decisions, I think it's imperative that you work with people you trust. And sometimes you have to bring up if you're worried about some of the decisions they make, because as a PM who doesn't have a technical background like myself, I can't judge whether or not they're making the right decisions. So a lot of people would see that as a shortcoming, and certain companies like those big ones, Google, Apple, whatnot, I've heard that they pretty much never hire PMs with non-technical backgrounds, which I'm actually surprised, because when I've in my albeit limited experience, when I've observed PMs who do have technical backgrounds, I've seen a lot of sort of skirmishes that arise and micromanaging that comes out of like, are you sure you want to do it that way? And what about this? Oh, it's just simple. You could just add this extra field in this column and this table and this and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And it's like, sure, I could do that. And you know what? Some of the times I'd probably catch an error and they'd say, oh, you're right, I could do that. But hopefully, if I give them that freedom to make all the decisions they want, first of all, they should be checking each other's code. So hopefully they're catching any of those things. And also it gives them a sense of ownership that I think would be impinged upon if I just kept second guessing their technical choices, which I can't even do, again, because I don't know any better. And so I think that, again, for those people listening who don't have the technical background, which I think is what most employees are coming from, try and leverage or play up the fact that can be an advantage. You'd be surprised what some of the smartest engineers will not take a step back and think about it from just like a average user perspective. If you have any, if you've been using certain apps, or if you're like me and you don't use a lot of apps, but you happen to be interested in human behavior or testing with people, if you have a knack for just getting, like, I didn't do user testing in the past, but I did these experiments for psychological research. And when I saw someone was getting stuck, I would ask them about it. And then I would go back to the engineers and then iterate, right? That's our buzzword, word of the day. It's like Mr. Rogers. So yeah, it's very applicable. All these skills are super applicable, and your skills are very valuable. We have a ton of people in the Bay Area or in these other tech hubs that have been trying to jump on these, like, take a course for a year and become a programmer. If you really want to do that, great, go for it. And it's amazing that we have resources to do that now. But these non-technical skills are actually very valuable. Like I said before, I like writing in my free time, and we actually don't have a product marketing person. So I don't sleep a lot anymore, but today we published a recent product marketing blog post that I wrote about some recent features. So now that I do my deep dive with engineers, we write out all the little individual tasks to do something, we plan it out into various development cycles. And then finally, when this is all done, and all the testing and everything, and it's released, we have to tell people about it. And one way we tell people about it, I work with, the few people we have. We don't have a big marketing department. The few people we have, how can we get the word out? What can I do? And one thing I do is I write these blog posts in very plain language about like introducing, blah, 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 like playing out. And then that's another skill that, again, if you want to think of it as resume building, like it's great that you've worked with marketing, you've done some marketing, and you have this portfolio of pieces now that you can show about how, after even developing this product, now I wrote about it in a way that can evangelize the benefits to a wider audience. So the most is engineering that I work with, to go back to your question. And then the people who are at the forefront of dealing with client requests, bugs, and prospects, like the salespeople who are trying to make sales, saying, hey, they need this feature. And, usually, again, PM 101, your usual answer is to not necessarily to say no, but to question and to not make the mistake that I made that one time when I just believed someone and I did it, and then I wasted everyone's time, including the salesperson, or in that case, it was the customer success VP who, I wasted his time too, because he couldn't tell them that there was a handy product that solved their problems. So really just try to talk to the people who you can't attend all of these meetings. So with all the clients and the customers that they have. So instead, just kind of having periodic check-ins. If you're ever going to release a feature, releasing it early to all of them to just go at it and test it like crazy and rip you to shreds. And you, have to develop a bit of a thick skin at this point. Like, no one can hurt me. So I feel like an actress, like a Northern California version of an actress getting rejected constantly from parts. But and working with designers, if you have a design team, is great too, because they can alleviate some of that role, and you can just be like, here are some problems. Can you help come up with a solution? And oftentimes they'll also want to get very creative and have like, and then this happens, and then you talk to engineers and they're like, there's no way in hell we can complete this within the time frame that you need it to be completed. And that time frame is usually dictated from, again, the other stakeholders, which is like the executives who want us to hit certain have certain deliverables at certain times. So really, I think that's the entire company. Maybe accounting. I don't have many expenses.
Wow. Thank you for that there. Like, it's really cool. It's like, I don't know, for me, I'm like actually being able to see you walk through the hallways, see how you're getting things done, see like the things that are most important to you in there, and also see how you've been able to continue to leverage your past experiences to provide unique value to your organization and to your teams here. And Denise, I'll just say, like, as we were talking here, it just kept becoming abundantly clear that you're able to connect these dots here and continue to like leverage yourself, and then really approach it from the standpoint of like continuously improving. And so I think employees, like, hopefully you're picturing what being a product manager involves, and the types of skills, the types of experiences that you might need, or that you might be able to leverage and parlay into a role like this to help you continue to move forward and start your journey or continue your journey in tech. So I know, Denise, we're running out of time here. I have one question that I'd like to ask everyone. Would you mind if I ask you that? And then
of course.
Here. All right, great. So I like to end each conversation with a roadmap that our employees can act on this week to create enjoyment through employment. So imagine your mind got sent back in time to the exact moment you decided to commit to your current career. You have the same skill set as you did back then, but you have all your memories, experiences, and confidence that you've developed since. Mm-hmm. Right? What would you do in the next 7 days to put you on a path to find enjoyment through employment?
Okay, wait. So I've gone back in time a couple of years ago to where I first started this position, mm-hmm. and I have my skills from then, but I have sort of the frame of mind, the confidence, and the better understanding of everything that it entails. So I from now, yes. Right? I have that addition. So what would I do in the next 7 days to essentially better set me up for success? To put you on a path to find enjoyment through employment, like just to get involved, to get started in your career in tech. I think the biggest thing I learned over the past couple of years, actually full circle, it is kind of the nothing or everything is temporary. I my biggest challenge when I first started in this role was I felt such immense imposter syndrome or like imposter complex, especially because, like I said before, so many other people in product management had these technical backgrounds. My boss was one of the smartest people I ever met. This guy was doing a million things at the same time. He had multiple degrees and this and that. And I couldn't believe that I was basically on the path to try to be him. And every time he explained something, it intimidated the crap out of me. And that scared me so much. Anytime I got the tiniest ticket that was submitted by an engineer to me for prioritization about 1,000 technical terms I knew nothing about, I would freeze and think, am I supposed to Google all of these? That's my usual reaction, right? And I would get so worried and I'd kind of freak out and be like, what am I doing? I still have to plan this project and and there was so much of that kept happening. Whereas now, when I get that ticket that has 50 words that I don't understand, I tell them, this has 50 words that I don't understand. You guys know that. You know that I don't understand this. I'm not suggesting you dumb down how you write your tickets because I'm not going to be the one doing this ticket. Just tell me, again, this goes back to surround yourself with people you trust. I'll say, just tell me, how important do you think this is? Do we need to act on this now? Do we need to act on this in 2 weeks? Can we just keep reassessing how important this is? You tell me, like, put the work on someone else because they will know better than you. There's no way you're going to learn all that crap. And there's no need to. There's no need for you as a person in a variety of these roles to suddenly be an expert in computer engineering. Like, there is no need. And I think that would have helped me a lot to not worry so much and get paralyzed the moment I got something I didn't understand and think, oh my God, I'm going to be a failure. I already am a failure. I blah, blah, blah. Right now, I'm like, I don't get it. It's okay. And I have a different boss now, and she's incredibly smart, incredibly hardworking, very, very effective. Probably the most effective I've ever seen in my time, product manager I've ever seen, product director. And she will absolutely just say, like, I don't get that. I don't know what any of those words you said means. And that's amazing to me. And it's so liberating to see this insanely talented, smart, experienced woman just say that because she has no chip on her shoulder. She knows she's not an imposter. She knows she gets good stuff done. And to know that it's okay not to know these things, especially these technical concepts in the tech world is so freeing. And it relieves. I was waking up at like 4 a.m. regularly, just with anxiety. And that didn't go away for at least 6 months. And now I sleep like a baby. but sorry, I know I go on diatribes and I know we've gone over, but I just want to emphasize as much as I can that, like, there are so many smart people that I wish could have the same experience I did, in that they could just be plopped for a couple of years in one of these new companies and see if there's a place for them. There might not be. You might go in there and you might say, hey, you know what? I didn't really like this at all. I want to go back to nonprofit. I want to go back to research. I want to get whatever it is. Totally reasonable. But knowing that there are tons of non-technical roles, and even roles like mine, which traditionally people have said are totally for tech people. Anytime I meet people, small talk on a plane who work in tech and whatever. Just recently, I chatted with the person next to me on a plane who was a computer engineer. And I said, oh, I'm a product manager. He said, oh, were you a computer scientist? But no, I'm not. I studied psychology. Oh, well, how on earth did you get into that? Why is that so hard to believe? Like, it's not, psychology is, I'm building products for humans and I studied humans. How is this not connected? Like, in my mind, it's so clear. And there are so many other backgrounds that you could absolutely, like, I might want to work as an account manager. I didn't know what account managers were before I started working here. People who form the relationship with key clients and come up with creative ways to make them more successful using the tools that we have. That sounds pretty cool. Sure, there's plenty of troubleshooting and annoying stuff that you might end up doing too, but every job has its annoying parts to it. At the end of the day, like, you have that skill set. I can't name a single friend of mine who doesn't have the skills to do that job, which is actually quite a well-paying job at many places. Marketing, same thing. you have some decent writing skills, you have a knack for learning, creativity, things like those, as long as that's there, and intelligence and the drive to want to learn more and learn from people and be able to be humble enough to say, I don't get it, explain it to me. And if you find yourself saying that too much, maybe take some time to, take a little course on the side or read some Wikipedia articles. But like, you can do this, and don't be intimidated by people who ask you how on earth, why would you apply for that job? I had people when I was looking for jobs saying, you're not going to get a job in user research because you don't have a master's degree in human-computer interaction. And I believed them. And it might have been true but in some regard. But because I didn't end up applying to one of those positions, that's just simply not true. Like, that is simply, you just need a foot in the door. Like I said, if you can find any sort of job you seem to find interesting, that you can learn from people, smart people, a good-looking company, just get in there and look at what other people are doing. Do what you were hired to do. Definitely don't forget to do that, ideally for a couple of years, and really become a master of something. But then also just pay attention to your surroundings. What are other people doing? They're not any better than you. They don't have any specialty that you don't have. Sure, maybe the tech guys do, or girls do, but when I say tech, I mean the computer programmers. But aside from them, and again, my favorite department, accounting, there are few positions where you really need a specialized degree. So I definitely want to insist that as long as you bulk up a little bit on your analytical skills, again, those online courses are helpful. YouTube is helpful. Just talking to computer scientists, make a friend, go to a company during lunchtime, be creepy about it. I don't know. Try to, Tinder swipe on only people who are computer scientists or something like that. Go on a few dates and seem really interested in what they do. Just whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
So that's that. That's my final spiel here.
Deniz, I thank you on multiple levels here. I thank you on multiple levels. First, I thank you. I love this one here where it's just like, it's whatever it takes, Yeah. And you said something that really got me, where you're like, you can do this. You can do this. And I think that is like, how do I say it? I'm actually getting here a little bit emotional here, because I think that's really at its core, that's it. You can do it. And Deniz, even just in the last 2 seconds of like how all the different ways that you can make it happen, like employees, just like get out there and make it happen, and know that while you're approaching it, like there are people out there that are thinking like in this ways, and they're finding new means, new ways to be able to express themselves and really find enjoyment through what they're doing here. And when it comes time for them to find something next, the next thing for them, they're in a position to continue to grow from there. So Deniz, I just want to thank you so much here. If you can give us just one parting thought and let us know how we can reach you, we'll go ahead and wrap things up here, and we'll talk again soon. Yeah,
of course. Just parting thought again, exactly what you said. I feel like you gave the better parting thought. That was amazing. Don't be put off by people who tell you don't have the qualifications. Chances are you do. You just haven't met the right person. Again, this is like dating. If you're on your Tinder date while you ask this, maybe, interpret it differently. But no, it just, I think the most valuable thing is just getting your foot in the door. Like if I had wanted to be a product manager from the start, I probably would not have gotten hired from anyone. So, and I don't think you should take a job just to switch immediately, but if you have a job in mind and you're having trouble getting it, see if there's a good stepping stone that you might be able to get in on, and put in your time and really put in good work, because people, even internally, people are, first of all, more likely to hire you internally, like switching jobs at a company, than a totally different company hiring you for a position. So that it just opens the door for different positions at your company if you do really good work at the job you were hired for. And your boss I put in 3 hard years in my position I was hired for. And that's why she was willing to give me a strong recommendation. I wasn't abandoning the team or anything like that. And she thought, yeah, it's time for you to learn something new. And so she convinced the other department, take a chance on her. Sure, she wasn't a tech background or product manager in the past or whatever, but she'll get stuff done. And And they basically, I mean, somewhat in a backhanded compliment way, kind of told me they were taking a chance on me and made it clear that, you know, there is a risk involved, but that's all it takes. And then you're on your way. And then you, again, believe in yourself. You know you can do this. You will do it once you get that opportunity. You just need to get that opportunity. And it might take a couple of steps, but get on that path the sooner you get on it, and just put in good work. Work hard, care about what you do, and don't listen to people who say they don't believe in you unless it's your Tinder date, in which case you should probably leave the restaurant and make them pay.
Thank you so much there, Deniz. And then if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would you?
Right. Oh my God. My email address is so difficult. Can you put it up on the site or something?
Yes, I will. I will make sure.
I have like the biggest name on earth, and it's unphonetic, and there's like a period in the middle of my email address. Then I thought I'd give you my company one, but I don't know if I should say the company name on I don't know. And also the company name is unphonetic as well. So.
Yeah. Everything goes. But what I'll say is that Joyce, if you're interested, just go onto the show notes page. Her contact information will be there. And then soon enough, we'll be starting up the enjoyment community. And Denise, if you don't mind, I'd love to invite you there.
Oh, I would love it. I honestly, as you guys can tell, I can talk about this forever. If you're in the Bay Area, I'll have a coffee with you. Like, it would be great. I love talking about this, and I wish more than anything that more people could hear this message. I want to go back to my alma mater and tell them, your career advisement sucked. Like, do you guys know that there's so many things that non-tech, stop only focusing on the engineers. Like, other people have these opportunities too. I am living proof. And so are plenty of people I know. So I could talk about this forever. If anyone has specific questions, please do go to the website and find my incredibly long unphonetic email address.
That sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, Denise. I'm looking forward to it. We might have to do like a part 2 sometime later on.
Sure,
here.
I'm happy to come back anytime.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. You heard it, Joyce. So, all right, Denise, take care and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
So, Joyce, how refreshing was that conversation? Think about that there in terms of all the different pieces of information and golden nuggets of value that Denise brought to the table. I'd like for you all to continue to take this here and act on it, to bring it into some type of beneficial reality for you, and embrace the power of being non-technical within a tech company. So at the end of each episode, I like to give you all a call to action, a journey, so to say. And today's journey is all about being able to really feel comfortable with not just embracing your past experience, but using that as a differentiator for you and a way to add value to your employers. So with that, I'd love for you to hop over to the enjoyment community and share one skill or trait from your background outside of tech that could translate to a unique contribution in a tech company. All right. We'd love to just see how people use their past experiences to better those around them, and really just start up a repository and start up a conversation around how just being you is not just enough, but it's needed, and how that brings something in there that really adds value to those around you. You can get over to the enjoyment community very easily. Just go to enjoyment.com/community or type the word enjoyment on your phone to the number 33444. And that will give you all the next steps to be involved. We're posting there daily. We're sharing insights daily. The conversations go beyond just the one call to action. But my hope is that if you are willing to take the 5 minutes every day to just share your thoughts on the call to action, you will build your own personal portfolio of results that you can use to help you get the job that you're looking for and experience enjoyment through employment. So with that there, here's to experience and joy every single day. Take care, employees, and we'll talk soon.